Welcome back, guys, to the Chasing Elite podcast. It has really been a long hiatus this time. We've, especially myself, been caught up with the rest of life, but happy to get back today. And joined by Jake Ferry today, so happy to have Jake on. The first time I met Jake was actually in Pittsburgh. So we met at a conference there. I met him with his assistant, Mike. And Jake, honestly, I don't even remember how we kind of met, but we just kind of got to talking and really enjoyed talking to you and came to realize that you were only about 25 minutes away from at Springfield. So it's fun to connect there in Pittsburgh, and then have seen you a few times since. Saw you at the Mass State Clinic. I guess it would have been last year, right? Yeah. Where you presented. So I'll just turn it over to you to give a quick introduction on yourself, speak a little bit about your background and what you're doing now.
Nice. So I think the reason we connected there in Pittsburgh is I flagged you down because you were in Springfield here. So it was one of those like, hey, I'm in your backyard, man.
That's what it was.
Got the conversation going. Yeah, that's how it always goes, right? Yep. Wear the gear, you find the connection. So, yeah, so Jake Ferry, I'm the program director at Root Sports Performance. We're a private strength and conditioning sports performance facility in Westfield, Mass. We serve athletes all the way from ages 10 through college. Had the opportunity to work with a handful of pros over the almost 5 years now that we've been open as well. And that's where I am now. That's the majority of my day, my time, my effort. That's what I love doing. Ended up here through a series of just good fortune. You know, they say it's important who you know, not what you know. And through the years of coaching youth soccer, which I got like 14 years experience coaching youth soccer, made some good connections. And it just so happens that the Roots facility itself had built this strength and conditioning facility within it, had someone that they were planning on bringing in, and on the 11th hour, it fell through. And I knew the guys that were somewhat overseeing it. And I said, why don't you bring up Jake and see what he would do? You know, so I started consulting. Okay, here's the gear I would have. Here's how I would suggest you guys run a program. And then after about 3 of these conversations, it turned into, would you want to run it? And it was a blessing because at the time I was actually like freelancing. It was the tail end of the really strict COVID restrictions. And I had before that been working for a nonprofit, completely unrelated to strength and conditioning. Always piecing together side hustles through be it soccer coaching or strength and conditioning on the side, but never full time, or at least not a long time had it been my full-time gig working in the fitness industry. And then laid off, freelancing. This came about. Flash forward almost 5 years. Here we are.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's always cool to hear the story of how someone got to be in the position they're in today. But I think let's dive right into it. So the first question that I really have for you is, I know you have some experience with combine prep and working with some of those guys who are trying to go from the college level to the NFL. So just kind of take us through that process of, like, you have a guy who comes in and you have a very specific timeline of what that looks like. And you know that you need to get this guy better in these very specific tests. So how are you going about breaking down and looking at his weaknesses, and then how are you attacking those?
So the big thing, right, is the 40.
Yeah.
That's every guy I've worked with now. So I've worked with 5 in total. It's the 40-yard dash, because I don't have the pedigree caliber athlete that's been coming to me and said, I'm getting drafted. It's just a matter of when. Right. Or how early. You know, the All-American guys, the guys playing in the Power 5 conferences. I haven't worked with any of those. I'm working with the unsung heroes, the guys that are really just shooting their shot. Some of them got some recognition throughout their playing career. And for example, he's actually probably the highest rated prospect I had. His background was D2. You know, so he had a hill to climb. They all had hills to climb. So looking at it and saying, all right, you got your game film, you got your individual accolades or not, you're pretty unknown. How are we going to catch the eyes of these guys? It's the 40, you know, because if you come and let's say you blow everything else out of the water, your vert is off the charts, your broad jumps off the charts, your pro agility is off the charts, your 3 cones off the chart, your skill. I'm going to say something, the skill things they do at pro days, I'm not a football guy. I don't know how one person watches that and goes, "Oh, that guy's really got it," and
See,
now that guy doesn't quite. Like they got DNs running around the circle and smacking a bag. You know what I mean? Like you're not figuring out watching that guy do that. Oh yeah, he's going to make it in the NFL versus he's not.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's coming down to the 40 in my mind. Because if you do everything else well, but your 40 is mediocre, there's enough other guys in the country doing everything you did well and having a fast 40. So it's almost like we needed that to pop off to even get into the conversation. Or for some of the guys that had been scouted throughout their senior year, got some recognition, got brought out to some senior bowls, they were told, even in no uncertain circumstances, like, you're on my list, but you need to hit a 4.4. Right? If you don't hit a 4.4, conversation's over.
Mm-hmm.
So 40-yard dash is where it's at. So I'm bringing these guys in, and, first thing we're doing is looking at their 40. And breaking down the 40, it's acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at the qualities of acceleration, max speed, there's no endurance work, right? It's acceleration. It's 95% acceleration. You might get a glimpse of someone's top speed in the back 10 of that 40.
Yeah.
And if they're actual elite accelerators, they probably don't even hit it in the 30 yards leading up to the back 10, right? So we really, first and foremost, prioritize the 40-yard dash. And then from there, we're trying to enhance their acceleration qualities and capabilities.
Okay. So is that like day one, you're bringing this guy in and you're running a 40 right from the get-go and just seeing like, okay, what are we working with? And then kind of breaking things down from there? Or what does that process look like?
All right, good question. So interestingly, no, I don't ever run someone 40 yards on day one.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, these guys, a lot of them, they're coming to you from, again, we all know the Les Spellmans and the Tony Villanis of the world, right?
Mm.
They're getting guys fresh out of bowl games. So on that hand, right, these guys have almost not had a break, but they've also just finished a really grueling season. Griff, you and I listened to Worthy's coach at that Sportsman Speed Conference talk about how he came on with a high ankle sprain.
Yep.
And he was like, forget about training him for the 40. We were just trying to like keep him in one piece. The dude was just fast.
Yeah.
Right. Where I'm at, I'm getting guys and they got their pro days in April. They haven't played since November, December.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these guys. So the idea of, hey, day one, we're going to sprint you 40, that scares me.
Right.
So I'll actually piece it where first thing I'm doing it is I'm looking at their first 20. I'll run them out 20 yards for the first week or two. Week 2 or 3, I'm getting them to touch top speed, but I'm doing it in more of a manner of like a gradual build up and fly 10.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I can see what they got. And now we have an idea of what their composite 40 looks. Yeah. So I won't actually straight out 40 the guys.
Yeah.
Right. I'll do it in pieces. And in my mind, that's just like little bit of risk prevention, risk reduction and trying to go hard on the 20, really not concerned about anything coming up weird. And then if I do see that max velocity, which you got to touch on at some point, I want to do it with a gradual buildup, and then we can hit it. So I can piece together, okay, here's your 10-yard segments, 20 through 40. You're just not doing it all in one stretch. So then I have an idea of what we're looking at, and it's shocking because these are not slow dudes.
Yeah.
But you put together a composite 40, so you're not even asking them to do it all in one shot. And they're coming out, and you're like adding it up, and you're like, that's a 4.8, that's a 4.9. Skill guys. And you were told it's a 4.4 or bust. And you're like, okay, so I have 6 to 8 weeks, and we got to drop 3 to 4 tenths of a second off your 40. So then you get to work, right? And I haven't had a single guy come in and run a composite 40 under a 4.8 week 1 or 2.
What's the fastest timed 40 after you worked with them that you've had?
4.47. 4.47. And so we got 2 of the guys there that needed to get there, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And then how they're timing it, though, that's a whole nother story. Because I'd say I had 3 guys get the 4.4s, but unfortunately, one of the guys in my second cohort, they gave him like a 4.55. It's to nobody's benefit, but I have superimposed the 2 videos on one another. One of the guys ran a 4.48, one of the guys ran a 4.455, excuse me, and it is the same run.
Yeah.
Down to the second their hand leaves the turf to the second they cross the finish line, it is an identical run. One guy made it. He got the opportunity. He got the contract. The other guy, that was the end of the road for him, and it sucks.
Why are we still hand timing 40s at the combine? Genuinely, what?
I mean,
Really?
the combine,
We'll
tell you,
timing 40s.
yeah, the combine it's ridiculous with the resources they have. But at the very least, right, they hand time the start, and then from what I understand, they will run back the video of it and make sure they got it right
first. Yeah.
The pro days, it's inexcusable.
Yeah,
agree.
As well, but that's worse because they're hand timing every segment of it. They're hand timing the start, the 10-yard split, the 20-yard split, and they got 30 dudes at the end line, all hand timing their own finish. And they congregate at the end and say, "What did everybody get? Throw out the outliers and let's settle on an average."
When you think about it like that, and what you just said about like the one individual got the contract and one didn't, like we're talking about the careers of athletes now in the hands of a hand-timed 40-yard dash.
Yeah,
it's just
it was a difference of 700ths of a second, which is well within the margin of human error. Right? That's why I said, like, you superimpose a 1/1. It was the same sprint, but human error, 700ths of a second. That makes total sense. But then it becomes gospel. They put it in the database, and that's it. It becomes gospel. Yeah. So anyway, you got you guys coming with the 4.8. You got to get them to 4.4. You got to hope for a good hand time, and you get to work. So like I said, acceleration is the big rock for me. So twice a week we're doing resisted sprints.
Are you using like what are you using for that? Is it a sled, a 1080? Is it,
we got the extra genie. You ever heard of that?
I have.
Yeah. So I have an extra genie. I'm looking at upgrading to T-Apex, which is the off-brand 1080.
Yep.
The guy who comes in and does our track work, he has one. So I've seen it work firsthand. I've run on it. I've run athletes on it. It's great. It does everything I need it to do.
Yeah.
The 1080 is that on steroids. But it's like you guys said, you've had experience with fourth place and everything. How fast can you get lost in the numbers on the fourth place? You got more data than you know what to do with, right? The big rocks, so that's what you're looking at. At least that's what I'm looking at. I'm not a sports scientist. I don't have a team of people that can analyze these correlations and minute things. Like, I'm looking for 3 things. The T-Apex can do that. So we're looking to go there. But I have an extra genie. So dialing it up to the right resistances takes a little bit of guesswork, trial and error. But basically we got that, and then you got a hand timer, and or rather a hand timer. I got a film analysis app that I can break down to the 100th of a second, and I'm looking for VDEX. So the first day of the week, I'm doing a heavy resisted thing, shorter yardage, building up to longer over the course of those 6 to 8 weeks. And I'm looking to go like 40 to 50% VDEC. And then I'll give them a 3-day rest from linear work. And then I come back on the Thursday and we'll do like a 25% VDEC. And then over the weeks, drop it down towards 10% VDEC. We're going to open it up 20 to 30 yards.
Okay.
For the resisted sprints.
How often are those VDECs changing based on, the archetype or the individual themselves, the position they play, how they're built, what they prefer, things like that, like a lineman versus a receiver? Are you playing around with the VDECs there? Or are they fairly consistent just within your programming for the 40?
Yeah, for the program for the 42 things. One, I've only had skill position guys. So I've only had wide receivers and defensive backs. So archetype wise, like I had one wide receiver that was built a little different than everybody else, but they moved the same. And as far as, percentages, I like to say 40 to 50% because, prescribing VDEX is nice in theory, but then when you watch it, things change. Things change. And especially with an instrument like the Extra Genie, where you don't have the subtlety of the mechanistic ones that we have now, the 1080s, the T Apexes, where dialing it can be a click here and a click there. On the extra genie, you go one notch up, and it feels like a difference of 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So you gotta take it or leave it sometimes and find that sweet spot, and be okay with the fact that I went to run you at 50% VDEC. It's coming out more like 40. When I go up one, it turns into 60.
Right.
Lesser of two evils. So that's the big thing I do there. Yeah, I like that bandwidth, and then using the eye test.
Yeah, it's like that conversation of we want to prescribe a certain number, but how is that influencing, the mechanics of that individual? Like, does it become less efficient now? And then you have that conversation of efficiency versus effectiveness. And I think that's a pretty common battle and conversation coaches have when working with resisted sprinting, devices. So,
yeah, 100%. And another big piece of it too, that I'll tell you what, all the gurus out there who do pro day preparation and the combine prep and all this, I haven't heard anybody else say it, but I'll be the first one to speak up and say it when they talk about we take 0.3 of a second off of everybody that comes to us. I guarantee you 0.2 of it is just repping the start, the 3-point start, because nobody that's coming to you is rehearsing 3-point starts. And everybody I've worked with, and these are dudes who did the high school combine circuit when they were in high school, and they got the coaches. Some of them I even heard their strength and conditioning staff made them do most of their sprints out of 3 points, but no one's coaching it. So it's like block starts, Griff, in track, right? Someone comes to you with a bad block start. All you do is, hey, let's move this foot up there. Let's move this foot back there. Put your pressure a little more there. Boom. You look like a genius.
It's not pretty when it starts.
Right? That's it. So all these guys, they're coming and we're doing these composite 40s, and I'm listening to, the heroes of the combine prep space, and they're talking about how they're dropping 0.4 off of guys that come to them. And I'm going, holy crap, they must be geniuses. What's their programming, right? And then I do it myself, and I'm like, in 3 weeks, you just did 40 reps out of a 3-point stance, and you cleaned up your first 10 by 0.2 right there.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. You rehearse a skill, you get better at it. In the 3-point stance, we're not talking about actually making athletic changes, right? We're not actually changing the organism. We're not making the athlete more explosive or more effective accelerator. We're literally just saying, put your foot here instead of here. Put the pressure on that hand more. Rep it a couple dozen times. Oh, wow, look, you got really good at it. Now you're faster. Well, you're not faster. You're just better at that skill of a 3-point stance.
Yeah.
I will say that after the 0.2 of a second, the rest of it is work.
Yeah.
Those are the actual adaptations.
Well, and I think the 40 is short enough that every step has so much value.
Yeah.
So like repping out to 20 does seem to be, very important, because each step, like one misstep and you might cost yourself a 10th, and that could be the difference for you. So
Totally.
there's just not enough time to like have makeup speed in the 40. Unless you're one of the unicorns, like a Worthy or something like that. But
yeah, all those guys that get invited out to Indy, they're all blessed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They put in the work. They got the coaches. They do it. I don't know how much money the agents must dump into their preparation and everything, but those guys are all fruits. You don't get invited to Indy unless you've shown up on game film week in and week out for at least a year.
Yeah,
and that doesn't happen. You're not a good player. Even the ones who call busts because they have bad 40s or whatever, they're the best athletes you or I would ever cross in person.
Right. Okay. Anything else on the combine? If not, I'm going to segue into something else here.
No, I mean, there's so much to talk about when it talks about preparing for that, getting guys faster, breaking down whatever specific test it is. Like, we go on for that for a long time. So I think that's well said. Cool. I guess question though for both of you, like, what are your thoughts on the 40? Is it optimal? What would you change it? The distance, if you could, you know what I mean? Like, so much weighs on these 4 to 5 seconds. It's like, is there a better way of testing? Does it hold too much weight? Just kind of generally, curious. And you don't have to have an answer.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I think it has way too much weight. It's cool when it comes off good, and as a strength,
it's just like
as a strength coach. Yeah. As a strength coach, it's awesome when you get to work with guys and then they succeed at it, right? It's like anything else. But at the end of the day, like there's more athletes that have great 40s that end up doing nothing in the NFL.
And like you said, you can do everything else right. You can test well in every other, department. And if you don't run a good 40, it's going to hurt you. But you can also do everything else poorly and run a great 40, and you're going to be set. So it's like it literally holds so much more weight than every other test.
Again, I don't follow it all that closely. I follow my guys when I work with them. I've been at every pro day I could of the guys I've worked with, which is awesome. Super fun day out. Great to see them. Really exciting. But when I look at Indy now, I don't even think most of those guys are doing the other tests.
No.
You got guys now that are only training for the 40, only doing the 40. They're not benching, they're not vert, they're not broad jumping, they're not doing the pro agility or the 3-cone because they know they don't need to. And my perfect example is and I don't know how he's doing in the NFL. Again, I don't really follow. But 2 years ago, there was that wide receiver from Oregon, undersized guy, and he was electric. Agility wise, side to side, he was a man amongst boys, right? And he ran a bad 40. And his draft stock plummeted.
Coach? Broncos Troy Franklin?
Oh,
No. It was a guy from Oregon, University of Oregon. That might be a guy you mentioned, but he was the best receiver in college football. Just picking up yards after the catch. Unbelievable. Ran like a 4.7 at his pro day, and everybody said, "Oh, his draft stock."
He's no longer good at football.
And it was like, pick the guy who 11 games this year had over 100 yards receiving. Like, and Keon Coleman's one, right? He had it all. He was the whole picture. But before he ever stepped foot on his pro day for his combine, people were like, this guy's the top 3 draft pick because of his game.
Right.
So I think it's totally overrated. It's an industry now. That's what it is. Like the NFL will never stop doing it because they actually generate revenue from it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how much weight and value they're taking from the scouts at the 40-yard dash, bringing it back to, headquarters and going, oh, this guy showed out. He ran in a straight line for 40 yards pretty fast. We got to take him. I know he wasn't on our radar before.
Right. It is crazy, though, because at the end of the day, it always should be like the game film should always speak for itself. I think like the NFL has proven that, at any given position, you at least have to be this fast. Like as long as you can run this, you have a chance of being successful.
But there's games played.
But there's too many guys in the league who are studs who ran 4.6s in the combine for me to believe that you have to run a 4.4 in order to be successful. Like, I mean, think about some of the best receivers in the league right now. None of them were necessarily, I shouldn't say none of them. Some of them weren't guys who were like lighting up the combine. They're just unbelievable at their craft.
Yeah, Puka, Devontae Adams, those guys.
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago, Cooper Kupp was unbelievable. It's like he was a 4.6 guy.
Yeah,
but I'm at the same time,
of all time, Jerry Rice notoriously had a very mediocre 40.
Right, but at the same time, there's no successful receivers who are running 5 flat in the 40 either. So it's like,
yeah,
right.
But that stuff shows up on game film. Like if you can't tell if a guy's fast enough on game film, then you probably should find something else to do with your career.
Your linear speed and your game speed are 2 different things. So and we've had that conversation before. So
yeah. I think that's a good spot to segue though. So I think doing a complete 180 here, right? So we talk about you have like an 8-week period to do this, to accomplish this task, and then you might never see this guy again. Take us through the process of a new 10-year-old comes into your facility, and you might see this kid for the next 8 to 10 years. What does that process look like in terms of like that long-term athletic development outlook?
Yeah, love that. So that's where we get into the nitty-gritty. That's the good stuff. We actually get to make a change, and change that matters. Yep. So I'm a firm believer in GPP being essential, especially in like today's youth sports environments, right? Because they are so buried in their sport that their skill outpaces and outweighs their athletic maturity and their general athletic abilities, right? And so just like quick anecdote, the number of 10-year-olds we have now that when we ask them to do something like a somersault or a cartwheel that don't even know where to start is staggering. Like, I'm going to sound like the old man in the room now, but when I was growing up, I don't know any of my friends that couldn't do a cartwheel or a somersault because you just did it. It was things you did. Everybody had that one friend that could do a back handspring, and he was a god, and everybody tried to emulate it, right? It was like the coolest thing ever. So, we have these kids. They're good at their sport. Every sport, youth sport now is elite sports, and they're doing it 3 to 7 days a week, 1 to 3 different teams, and so they come, right? So first thing we want to do is nail the basics. So for me, it's going to sound like an old record, guys, but can you squat? Can you hinge? Can you push? Can you pull? And we get them running. And that's the big one for me, because I think so many of our team sports, which are amazing. I love sports, love competition, love what they bring to the table, but they don't offer kids opportunities necessarily to actually produce maximal outputs. So we rely a lot on sprinting to be that stimulus to drive maximal outputs, because as someone who played soccer all the way through college myself, I can tell you, you can go a week, if not a month, in a competitive soccer season, for example, and not hit top speed. That's not unthinkable, right? And when you think, well, what's the best way to get faster? It's to sprint top speed. So we make that an underpinning part of what we do. And everything we do is tied into drive that ceiling. So I started by saying I'm a firm believer in GPP, and I think that there's a place for it. And I think that teaching them the foundational lifts, movement patterns, and the like are important. But I do it with the bias of trying to teach them where their ceiling is and touch it. Where I feel like a lot of GPP is buried in submaximal efforts forever. And I think that I use those submaximal efforts, but they could feel maximal to untrained athletes. So the first exercise on everybody's card when they come in, it's a split squat ISO. Because you gotta be able to own that position.
You would be shocked, and sorry to jump in, but you'd be shocked how many that I've seen at this level that can deadlift, squat 400 pounds and are buried by a 30 to 40 second split squat ISO. It's remarkable.
Day one on our card, everywhere from 10-year-olds to 14-year-olds. It's a 20-second, 1 rep, 20 seconds split squat ISO. You start body weight, you show me you own that position, then we can talk about adding weight. And it's amazing because, like I said, it's probably submaximal, but to an untrained 10-year-old, you ask them after the first rep, 20-second hold, do you want, that looks good. Do you want to add weight to the next set? And I go, oh God, no. Oh God, no, that was enough. But so that's kind of how we go about it. We teach positions first. So we do that through isometrics. Love isometrics for teaching positions. So we build strengths in the right position. And then from there, now you can start to just add a little movement to it. So love triphasic training. But when it comes to youth athletes, that level, like it's written in the book, you're not going to get anything useful out of that. That is for advanced athletes. It says so in the title of the original book. It's advanced methods, right? But I love the idea of isometrics and eccentric for teaching. So we'll do the split squat ISO. We'll do push-up isometrics where they got to hold that bottom of a push-up. We'll do hinges. I don't like doing hinges isometrically, though. I like doing hip bridges isometrically. I think that's fantastic. But again, we'll do our rows, like a TRX row, isometrically. Then we'll add an eccentric component to it. And my mind here is always, if you've learned how to find the position at the bottom or at the weakest link in the chain, and then you can control yourself to that bottom, the weakest link in the chain. After you've proven you can do those two things, you should be able to get in and out of it dynamically. So then you get into good, proper, traditional strength training. And all the while, we're trying to pair that with opportunities for kids to express maximal outputs. Like I always tell kids, isometric split squat, but on the way up, I want you to explode up. I want you to fire out of that as fast as you can. Anytime we're jumping, I want you to jump as high as you can or as far as you can. We do a lot of medicine ball throws. I'm telling them, I want you to throw it as hard as you can. Because again, I don't think they get those opportunities a lot in their sports because you have to have that game speed. You have to have that ownership speed where you're in control of your movements, which means you can't lay it all on the line. But that means that there's a huge unturned rock to develop in training.
That's a great point too, because and we're having this conversation the other day, but it's one, expose them to maximum outputs, but also like a lot of athletes now don't know what it feels like to train at 100% intent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the intent just so high that you're expressing all you can, and no matter what you're doing, it could be holding an isometric, it could be throwing a med ball, it could be sprinting. To train maximally, you have to be obviously dialed in physically, but it also takes a mental and emotional aspect. I know that Jay Schroeder talks about that all the time, but it's like all these things need to come together as one for you to actually express yourself maximally. And I think that that's overlooked, at least in a lot of athletes, younger athletes now.
It is too. And you think about where they're coming from. Like, again, from a soccer background, when you're at a soccer practice and it's time to do like conditioning, and his coach says, we're doing 10 sprints. None of those sprints are sprints. You're in survival mode. You're just trying to make it through.
Yep.
So you automatically have this kind of experience of just dialing it back and making it through. And you see it the first time you put a medicine ball in a kid's hand and you say, okay, you're doing a throw it at that wall. And they're going through the motion. They pick it up, they rotate, they push it.
Yeah.
And I always tell them, no, I want you to put a hole in that wall. And then they kind of, oh, okay. And then it's great when you have a coach like you mentioned, Mike Griff.
Mm-hmm.
Dude has some awesome rotational power. You put it in his hand. I want it to sound like this. Hey, Coach Mike, throw this. When he was an athlete of mine in the space where we now train, there are two sections of medicine ball, diamond plated wall. One of them is built out a little bit from the wall. One of them is flat up against it. And he was hitting the flat part and the whole wall was flexing. And we were like, hey, don't throw it over there anymore. You're not allowed to throw balls over there anymore. That's for the little kids. And so it's great. You put a ball and then the kids go, oh, light bulb. Or even when they're jumping, everybody loves doing a box jump, right? Every kid likes doing a box jump. And they want to go higher and higher and higher. But if you don't put that to the peak of where they're going to scrape their shin on it, we have the padded ones anyway. No one's scraping any shins. They don't get that true experience that we all grew up with. But if you don't put it as high as they possibly can, they don't jump as high as they can.
Right.
So sometimes I like teaching them, I don't care if I put a 6-inch box in the ground. If you can jump 20 inches, jump 20 inches up and come down to a 6. They don't get that. They'll just jump as high as they need to. They'll throw the ball as hard as they need to, but not their hardest.
Yep.
Teaching that intent is huge. And that's what I mean to say when I talk about raising the ceiling. I am by no means saying I'm taking an untrained 10-year-old and going, you're 1 rep maxing.
Yeah.
But I think, again, in the current youth sports setup, they do so much sub-maximal volume, so much time on their feet, that while GPP is great, when they get in a sports performance environment, we got to be sure to give them something they're not already getting.
Right.
So, there's so many models out there for sports performance strength and conditioning facilities, and they finish like the last 10 minutes of their hour with conditioning. The youth athletes we get, most of them, there's always the exceptions, do not, or I should asterisk, should not need conditioning because they're coming to us the 1 day a week that they don't have their sport, and the other 6 days a week they're playing their sport. Yeah. And if that's not conditioning you, what will, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to ask if you guys do any, aerobic foundation within your GPP. So it's kind of funny you touched on it.
I don't, and I'll tell you what, even with my college athletes that come to me in the off season, now these are the byproducts of the youth sports scene that we have now. No one doesn't play men's league, women's league, summer ball, pickup. So even like I have this one very encompassing program with my college soccer players over the summer. We meet 5 days a week for 8 weeks. And what I learned early on was I don't even need to hit the aerobic base with them because they're all playing league games twice a week. And I get 2 days a week with them on the field. And I'm a firm believer that the conditioning aspect, if we can do it while we're playing and actually getting our skill work in, 2 birds, 1 stone. Right? So we do that. And what I've learned is even though I will tell the kids, and very few have said this, trust me, you don't need to do your conditioning packet if you're here every day. They all still go and do their conditioning packet because that's what that conditioning packet is there for, right? It's the fear factor of if I don't do this, I'm in trouble come preseason.
Some of those soccer conditioning packets are just comedy. Comedy, man.
Yeah, they've gotten better over the years. I will say I get to look at enough of them over the years. Thankfully, they've gotten better. They really have.
When I coached the women's soccer in college, they ran, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And it's missed, right? Like what they think they should do, what the coaches give them to do versus the strength coaches give them to do. And a lot of times what I see is, at the schools where they only employ 1 or 2 strength conditioning coaches, they have all these sports they got to do their conditioning packets for. Soccer's kind of like the throwaway.
Yeah.
I don't think they spend as much time on it. Football, they're probably pouring months worth agonizing over their spreadsheets and their and then soccer and they're just like, just have them run 5 miles one day, 3 miles the next,
right.
Sprints another day. They'll be good, So more care has been taken in it. I think it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, so you talked about killing 2 birds with 1 stone on field, kind of contributing to an aerobic base while also having them, compete or, do things of that nature. What does that look like for you?
For that particular program with the soccer program. So again, I have a lot of experience coaching soccer as well. Big believer in utilizing our time in the off season, pushing your limits. Again, I think in most team settings, and this is true of our youth athletes, it's true of our college athletes, you are expected to do what you're capable of and live within that pocket. Unless you are the superstar where the coach is giving you the green light to go ahead and try things, make mistakes, you're not at risk of getting dropped to the bench. You're not at risk of getting cut, right? It's play within your role, play within your abilities. And that serves people well on game day. But I think training should be making mistakes that you can learn from. So I love doing 1v1 stuff, 2v2 stuff. So naturally, when you build in those, what you have is you have high quality actions. And by quality, I don't just mean the quality of the gameplay. I mean the physical underpinnings of it. 1v1 is going to be fast. There's going to be high accelerations. There's going to be really aggressive changes of direction. There's going to be contact where, you have to be strong. You have to plant. You have to leverage your body against things. And if you're training that way, naturally, you have to build in recovery. So the way I like to structure those sessions, you got all the competitive nature of it. You're getting the skill work. Now you're also putting kids in positions where a lot of players don't go one-on-one. That's not my game. I get the ball, I pass it. And I don't want to be stuck in a 1v1 defending situation. That's how I was as a player. Please don't put me in a 1v1 defending situation. I'll do everything I can to avoid it. And when my coaches made me do it in practice, I hated it. And that's how I knew I needed it. Right. But I didn't do as much as I should have. So anyway, from a tactical standpoint, you're learning what works for you, what doesn't. From a skill standpoint, you're exploring what works for me, what doesn't. Because I tell kids all the time, I'm not a 1v1 person, or I'm not fast enough to do that. Yeah, but it doesn't mean you can't have a solution. You still have to have a solution in these situations. Doesn't mean you have to use it every time, but doesn't mean you're allowed to fail if this confronts you in the game. Right? But then from a physical standpoint, with our athletic qualities, we're developing acceleration, changes of direction. You get that anaerobic capacity. And then in my mind, you get that aerobic recovery if you're doing really small things like the 1v1s, the 2v2s between bouts, and then small-sided games I'm a huge proponent of. So 3v3s, 4v4, we're doing gameplay, but we're going to constrict the environment with different rules or different field sizes that are going to make them work in certain ways. For example, if you want to work on conditioning, maybe sometimes we'll roll out a game and it'll be 5v5, and I'll say, if you can score within 3 passes of gaining possession, it's worth 2. So what does that do? Okay, if I win the ball deep in my own ends, we have 3 passes to get up the field. That means everybody's sprinting. I need to give a forward option, or I'm on the ball and I'm driving forward fast, right? Because I got to get to that goal. You don't get the modern soccer passing side to side, back and forth until the other team drops off and you're trying to, puzzle piece your way through. It's go, which in reality is a lot of these college soccer players' games. Or we'll do a constraint like everyone on your team needs to be in the attacking half for a goal to count. So you win the ball, somebody takes off, everybody's got to take off with them. The other team wins the ball, everybody's got to counterattack because they know it's coming, which means you got to counter defend. And you end up with a nice little end-to-end track meet situation where you get those repeat sprint opportunities and aerobic capacity, and aerobic kind of underpins it. That's how I like to layer in all those one-on-one. And anytime you can make it competitive, bonus. Because now you don't really have to worry about effort levels because no one wants to lose.
No, that's a really cool way of doing it, I think, and actually not something I've ever thought of before, because oftentimes when I think about a constraints-based approach to coaching, I'm thinking about developing some sort of skill. I've actually never thought of it from the lens of how is that changing like the qualities that you're building. So I think that's a really unique perspective to have in terms of like how you're manipulating training, manipulating the environment to get the outcome that you want from it.
Yeah, that's like soccer coaching education 101. It's all that. It's interesting because with constraints, the whole CLA movement, ecological dynamics, and all that. I first started hearing about it and I thought, this is genius, and then you read Franz Bosch and your head's spinning and you don't understand any of it. And, getting into the guys from Emergence, they're awesome. Tyler Yerby actually moved out to Providence and I had the opportunity to go visit him. He works for Brown Football now. He's one of the two founders of Emergence. Their background's mostly in football, but they're kind of like the flag bearers for constraints-led approach in American football right now. They co-authored their book with Rob Gray.
Yeah, I have Rob's book. I just haven't read it yet.
Oh, it's awesome. He's a great writer. I really enjoy his books. So I got a couple of them. But anyway,
I know it's going to take a lot of focus to read that book.
I would say, you know what? Have you ever read Franz Bosch?
I have not read Franz Bosch yet.
Okay, because I was going to say that is a light read compared to Franz Bosch. Rob Gray, I think, does a really good job of bringing it down to a readable, digestible level. Yeah. Franz Bosch, you need to put on the extra cup of coffee and quiet room. And even then you got to reread each passage 10 times. That was me, at least.
Yeah. Well, I had it sitting beside my bed, and I was like, yeah, this is not a book I'm going to be able to read and then fall asleep right afterwards. So I'm going to have to find a different time of day to read that one.
Yeah, for sure. But so full circle, constraints-led approach seemed like this amazing thing. And I would hear these guys talk about it and I would think, what is it? I don't know. I'm missing something to it. This is amazing. This seems so sensible. It makes so much sense to deliver what we're looking for. And the more I learned about it, the more I learned, oh, this is what we've been doing in soccer forever. I think soccer, for anybody who doesn't have a coaching background, but wants to learn more about constraints-led approaches and would be open to the idea of learning soccer coaching, go do some soccer coaching education. Because the big thing in soccer that they've said forever is the game is the best teacher. The game is the best teacher. And it almost sounds like a cop-out, well, then why do you need coaches? But then you learn the skillful coaches, the masters of their craft, they manipulate those little things within gameplay to teach.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think my background in that has really led me into embracing ecological dynamics, constraint-led approaches within training. And then it's been actually, for me, it's been the opposite. It's been cool to see how I can integrate that within sports performance and skills like sprinting technique. And particularly agility and changes of direction. You start doing that and you start working with some high-level football guys. Oh, I've learned so much. Listening to them explain concept, defensive backs on how to close down people with angles and timing, and they use the term leverage. I heard that, a light bulb went off. I thought, wow, soccer needs that phrase. When you talk about leverage and coverage, and I just thought, what a perfect word to describe where you want to be in relation to an opponent, what you want to give them versus what you want to take away. And it all ties together. beautifully. It's that nice intersection of, for me, it's become that nice intersection of training athletic qualities and skill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And that's something I've tried to incorporate as much as I can, kind of in my environment. And it's just, you get to a point where it's like being very hands-on and helping guys access certain positions or feel certain things is great, but it's like, at what point do they not learn from that? Right? It's like, it's a quick hitter. You understand the cue, but like, is that going to make any lasting change? And so what I found is that constraint-led approaches and creating environment and adding constraints to force guys to make certain decisions, learn from them, expose them to certain qualities, things like that. It's going to create more lasting change. And so, like, I'm sure it's a spectrum where there's time and place for both, but I think long term, and at least when coaching, trying to create change that sticks, it's like, to me, I haven't found anything better.
Yeah. And then going back again to the whole conversation of youth development, we love gameplay within our youth training sessions. And that can be anything from like a really open, organic game of handball. We do this like ultimate frisbee style handball, which is great. It's super fun, gets kids moving, but can also be much more crafted with 1v1 agility games. And then it goes back to the soccer conversation where, coach, well, this isn't my thing. I'm not fast. And we're doing it in a sports performance setting. I don't care if you're fast. You got to beat this guy 1v1, and you got to find out what works. We've had some great situations where you have some like early growers that might not be quick, but they have huge frames and they're 12, and they learn, oh, if I put my body between this guy and the flag he's trying to pull on my far hip, he can't reach that far hip. And it's like, cool, what sport do you play? Oh, basketball. Do you think you could put the ball on your far hip? Okay, now you just learn how to play someone in the post. Like, cool situations like that. So that's another thing we love with youth development is putting kids in situations where they have to, learn and discover. And it's not telling them, oh, this is how you do a lateral cut step. This is how you do a crossover step. This is going to make you more agile. Good luck. And it's like, I got better at my cross step at sports performance, but I didn't get any faster. What good is that going to do?
Exactly.
But hey, we repped out 40 reps. You were successful on 20. You failed on 20. What do the 20 have in common that you won at? Okay, bring something like that to your game. That matters,
Handball was the primary reason why almost every one of my training sessions with Springfield men's volleyball in the fall went about 25 minutes over our allotted time slot. So,
yeah, it's electric, man. When you get guys that want it,
come on, man,
dude.
Is there a better warm up?
Well,
I haven't found one.
I don't know. We've done it. Do you guys do it to goals? Do you do it to end zones? How do you do it?
We did it to goals. We would play like,
it's awesome.
I think we were like, our best games were with like the lacrosse nets. We played on Stag the one time under the lights.
Nice.
Like, oh my gosh, unbelievable. I think we played on like a 40 or 50-yard field.
That's awesome.
We had like 20 guys playing. It was like, 13 on 13 probably. It was unbelievable.
Goalies, people volunteer to be goalies because I bet those volleyball guys could rip it.
Yeah, they can rip it.
We actually stopped going to goals because we had a couple of guys. Like we had one young man. He's pitching at D3 college right now, and we're like, all right, we're not playing the goals anymore because we'll have like mixed ages in our group, and he's just unloading a volleyball from like anywhere on our field, and poor 12-year-olds are like, ducking, getting out of the way so they don't get their head taken off. They're like, we're gonna play it to end zones now, so it's a little more like ultimate frisbee style.
That's crazy.
That is dope. You got anything else, Griff, on this topic?
No, I'm good. If you want to transition here.
Yeah, just I mean, I think that's another topic that we can talk about all day. The idea of early specialization. Where does that play a role in these guys' development? How can we help alter some of those effects, et cetera? I kind of want to transition to something a bit different and something that I have, little to no experience on. I have knowledge of what it is. I connect with coaches in the field that, value it. And I know that you have some experience with Square One. So I kind of just want to pick your brain on, explaining it to someone with a lack of knowledge on it and where you think it's valuable, what settings, what individuals, how can you use it to just assist in what you're trying to drive with some of your athletes?
I gotcha. Yeah. So Square One, I've been doing since 2022. 2022, fall of 2022. Sean Sherman came up, hosted a workshop with us at Roots, which was awesome, and learned it then. It is a system designed to basically clean up sensory input. So the whole idea is, all the things we go through in life that can provide stressors, some of those stressors can actually create like threat signals. And when we're in a state of threat, we compensate. So what Sean found through his work was any signal in which we have a threat response, there's going to be a particular joint action within the body that is not operating as it should. It's going to be intolerant of ground reaction forces, which is everything, right? That's how we move. Gravity's always pulling on us. So Square One is a system that's basically designed to identify triggers just by simply having participants do different head positions, eye positions, actions, whatever it might be, whether it's an external influence or something they're doing on their own, and then seeing, is this a trigger where it's causing a threat response or is it not? If you have a threat response, then through really simple intervention, and they range from more complex interventions to simple, but they all have the same end result, you basically give your nervous system, your brain, the realization that that threat that they thought was present is in fact safe. And then there's no longer that compensation. So that joint action that your body was limiting or not allowing in the face of that particular input, that sensory input, is now restored. You do that enough times, you have more optimal movement. You have more optimal movement solutions and outcomes. And with that, what you see is improved performance, improved range of motion, decreased pain. And you asked, who might this be most appropriate for? When you get people in pain, what Square One has shown us is that a lot of the time, that is not tissue damage. Mm-hmm. It's sensory input that's off and the compensations present that are creating a signal of pain as a protective mechanism. But there's actually nothing there structurally that you need to protect. Mm-hmm. So when you relieve that sensory input of the threat of pain, pain goes away. So it's helpful in that regard. That would be my elevator pitch synopsis. Mm-hmm. Somebody, hey, I don't know you, but you're in pain. Let's see if we can fix this.
Are you familiar with Dr. Jared Burton's work at all? Train Efficiently on Instagram?
Only through probably similar friends that we have.
Yeah.
Ranting and raving about him right now. It's on my list of, let me get around to this, what this guy's putting out, because it seems like the magic bullet.
Yeah, I have no experience with Square One, but I did take his neuro course, and it's similar but different. But it talks about how, based on a lot of postures that you see are going to be a result of, lack of tone, deficiencies, things like that in certain brain areas. And a lot of that, could occur over time due to constant triggers based on a threat sensitive environment, mm-hmm. things of that nature. And if you can strip that down, right, and you can, help relieve those triggers, dissipate them, your posture should change as a result. And then you should get more clean movement. So I think it kind of ties together. Obviously, it's a lot more complex than that, and his neuro course is phenomenal. I'd recommend anyone to do it. It's one of those things where you learn how to assess people, and your brain kind of just spins because there's so much to it, and you feel like it can unlock so many different pathways in terms of how can we help people relieve pain, or how can we utilize this to correct certain things that are limiting factors. So I just thought that was kind of a cool tie, and I think that overall, a lot of these systems that you see that revolve around similar things, they tie together naturally.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I know.
Have you seen anything with that you're doing that can be integrated in group settings?
So I haven't had the opportunity to actually use it much, just naturally in the environment I'm in, the setting I'm in. I played around with it myself, my family. I don't know if you know Coach Saz, Brian Casaza.
Oh, he knows Coach Saz.
You know Coach Saz.
I do.
What a delight. We've texted back and forth and sent each other videos back and forth. I've implemented a lot of the call them corrective exercises to help fix certain postural issues, things like that. And it's fascinating to incorporate it. Like the setting I think would be most effective would have to be, I think you can incorporate it in group settings, but you couldn't do it as a group. So like you pull individuals aside, it could be within their personal, programming to help, fix a certain deficiency or lack of tone in certain areas. Like there's things you can include in each individual's program that's going to help that individual, right? It'd be tough to incorporate in group settings because everyone's going to, test differently, right? And those results are going to largely impact exactly what you're prescribing. So it would be more of an individualized approach for sure. It's also then presents a question of what is the optimal dose? When do we dose it? Right? Because at the end of the day, it's like it's more stress. These lack of tone areas that are leading to, postural changes that are inhibiting proper movement, that has to be a priority at the forefront. Like it's going to be tough to push outputs. It's going to be tough to drive certain adaptations without handling these things first. So it's definitely a piece that needs to be touched on early. It's not like, let's kind of like throw it in and see if it works, see if it sticks. It's like, well, if we're trying to push certain thresholds and reach a certain level, probably need to clean some of these things up first.
Coach, don't give too much of the course away. You're going to get us demonetized.
Well, trust me, I didn't give any of it away. You zero terms from
I think someone needs a Rosetta Stone to crack that,
dude.
Because I listened to him. He was on Just Fly recently.
Yeah.
And he's definitely got some special stuff going on.
And Joel himself is interesting as well.
Special guy.
We love Joel, but there's some things that Joel does. We're like, what are you doing, Joel?
Yeah. I can see that. The reason I asked about the group thing, because with Square One now in our setting, it's either I'm doing something one-on-one with somebody because they've asked for it, or I'm basically sneaking it into training in a group setting. And like you said, the big thing is individuals are going to test differently, right? But the beauty of Square One is the resets are so fast and so simple that if you're putting people through what you think could be triggers, and then you're having them reset when there's not a reset necessary, you've wasted no time and you've cost them nothing. So the two places I like to kind of do it in group settings is in the warm-up. One of the Square One things, if you take the level 1 course now, there's a piece of it that's called like the balance fix. And it's just a bunch of different postures that you experience all the time. And then resets, we'll call them, clearing them. You do that, and then you tweak the posture the next training session. You tweak the head positions, you tweak the eye positions, little subtle things. And whether you're getting a compensation relieved or not, it's costing you no time whatsoever. But let's say 1 out of every 3 that you do, if we're doing 6 different positions every warm-up, you're getting 2 a day over 40 sessions over the summer, for example, you're getting 80 compensations cleared. So it's almost like more of a grenade approach, which is not the way Square One was designed to be, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And then I've been also trying to layer in triggers intraset for my athletes. So you have that block of exercises, and it's awesome where, we have a heavy compound lift. We'll go into that complementary plyometric, looking for that little bit of transfer. And then they need to recover anyway before they get into the next set. I'll have them do something super simple. I'll make it a trigger, and I'll have them clear. And I'll have them do it all 3 times. If it's present, likelihood that they get rid of it within 3 clears, 3 compensations, really high. If it's not there, oh, well, they had to recover anyway. But now instead of being tempted to go check their phone or goof off or get lost or just stand in the way. They're doing something somewhat productive. They're at least moving, their blood pumping. And the cool thing I saw with that was I did that 3 summers ago. And we had like little to no injuries, not only in training, but throughout the whole season. And I averaged it out after their fall soccer season. This is my soccer program again. And with like 30 athletes, they averaged less than 1 game missed throughout their entire season from injury. The next year, because as we coaches do, something works and we go, well, we got to change it anyway.
Yep.
And the thing with injury prevention, right, is you don't know if injury prevention works.
Right. You don't know if, what the reason was. You can never.
So I decided, I'm going to take a little bit different stance. I'm going to get that out of my intraset blocks. I'm not going to do those square one little interventions in between. Highest amount of little nagging missed session injuries I had throughout a summer by 5 years of doing it. Highest amount of sessions I've had where athletes are coming up, my back's tweaked, this hurts, that hurts. We're trying to push weights. It's not working like it used to. And then during the season as well, hearing people, this was off, that was off. I missed this game with an ankle, with a hamstring. I put it back in this summer and our results went right back to the way they were, where almost no sessions missed through injury, no nagging issues throughout the summer itself. And in the season itself, again, like almost nobody missed games through injury. So it's one of those, I'm not going to go back and like test my hypothesis again. Because if my athletes then get injured again, I'm going to be kicking myself. What the hell am I doing? So that's one of those. I tried it, stopped it, tried it again. I just got to stay it now.
Mm-hmm.
How's the buy-in with introducing those things? Because I know the interventions can be unique.
For sure, it's pretty mixed.
Yeah,
it's pretty mixed for sure. What I try to do is get people to do it. If I see they're doing it, let them be. Because I'm not trying to turn skeptics into believers. But when I see people kind of skirting it, I'll pull that person aside and I'll be like, hey, do one of those. And then I'll actually do the individual testing on them. Be like, look, there's something going on here. And I'll show them a little intervention. I'll retest. Hey, you see how that changed? So you may think it's silly. You may not do it. You got nothing else you should be doing in this time anyway.
Right.
It can be a tough sell.
It's dope.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I haven't seen it enough to really have a strong opinion one way or another. I just don't have good enough understanding of it yet to really know for sure. But one thing I do know is if you showed up to a track practice, the amount of like nagging little injuries you would hear about is just astounding. It's unbelievable. Like every kid's got something little going on.
Yeah.
Because we do the same things like all the time. Like our sport is running or jumping, and I mean, if you're a sprinter, like you got to sprint. So it's like hard to get around that. If you're a long jumper, guess what? Got to jump. Yeah, it's tough. But no, Jake, I think a good place to wrap up tonight. So really appreciate your time. One thing we always leave with is we just want to get from you a person. We try to limit it to one that you would like to see us have on for a future episode.
Yeah, you think we could learn a lot from?
Sure. One of the best kind of mentors I've gotten in this space, and it just opened up as like a business transaction first, and then I've had multiple reasons to go back and keep asking him questions, and he's always very generous with his time. An absolute wealth of knowledge, everything from training, the history of training, sprinting, and neurology stuff is Jeff Moyer.
Moyer.
You guys familiar with Jeff?
I know that name.
I'm not.
So he's out of Pittsburgh. DC Sports Training is his business. He was actually at the Sportsmith conference. He was the other guy. I tracked you down, but I found Jeff, and we did a lot of talking there too. He just released a biomechanics course on the Strength Coaches Network. And I was fortunate enough to be in kind of one of his pilot courses that he did before he rolled it out. So another great opportunity to listen to him. He hosts his own podcast as well. He's called Jeff Moyer. What is the name of it? He just had on like Randy Huntington and the guy who invented the Lila sleeves.
Well, I like Randy Huntington, so I'll probably be listening to that one.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. What is the name of his?
He's been on
the rap. Down the Rabbit Hole.
Oh
That is
boy.
the name. That is the name of his podcast. Jeff Moyer, amazing wealth of knowledge. And I'll tell you what,
How do you spell his last name?
in
Moye.
That's right
MOYER.
there. I'm trying to find his
And I'll
Instagram.
tell you what, in the day and age where
Instagram.
you have social media and you have people trying to invent new things, and it's just absolute garbage. And then you have people trying to present themselves as if they've created something, and it's just regurgitated stuff that has been good and been good for decades.
Mhm.
Jeff Moyer is an amazing
Richard
reference.
Lawrence.
This dude knows his history. He was mentored by Dr. Yesus. He was on he could, has had multiple conversations with, guys like Bondarchuk and all those Soviet, the grandfathers, the Mount Rushmores of our field
Mhm.
through Dr. Yesus over the years. So he's a great historian of the field as well, and can really steer training ideology in a great direction because he's done his homework and he's been around people that literally created the systems that we are now using today, and people are trying to mask them as their own or novel or new.
That's
I
awesome.
feel like I've listened to him on Just Fly before.
He's been on for sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
Awesome. Anything else, kid?
No, man, I appreciate you taking the time. One, it was great to meet you. I've heard a lot of good
Yeah.
things. So put name to face, hearing from you. I definitely appreciate it. And I hope that, down the road we can have more conversations and stay connected and hopefully have you back on here and, talk about different things or kind of circle back and, extend this conversation of how we've, developed since. So I do appreciate you coming on, and, I'm excited to continue connecting.
For sure, guys. Thanks for having me. It was fun. Always fun to talk shop and everything. So hopefully don't tank your ratings. You get an opportunity to bring on a slugger like Jeff Moyer. And
Yeah.
He'll boost you guys up.